Hello, everybody. Fernando Labastida and Linh Nguyen here in another episode of Linh Talks Tech. Len, I think we really need to kind of address this article that was in the Register the other day. It was actually May 8th. The name of the article is called Users Find Rise with SAP Service Levels Below Industry Standard. As somebody who plays very deeply in this space, why don't you give us a commentary about what's going on over here?
Yeah, I mean, I've been following the whole industry since the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of the customers that we typically deal with enterprise globally has been asking us about SAP RISE, which is a managed service offering from SAP to change the commercial aspects of their software. Instead of just licensing software, they're saying, hey, we could host software for you as a managed services. So we will be the service provider, managed service provider, MSP. We talked about MSP before. The model is essentially providing management of day-to-day operations. And in SAP's case, they said, hey, under one structure of commercial, I will have software licenses and hosting, and we'll take care of almost everything. So you can focus on the business. That's their pitch, right?
That's their pitch, right?
So it sounds great to the CFO, and CFO's, like, oh yeah, let's go migrate to SAP RISE. So in 2023, we had initially a lot of customers ask, hey, what does that mean to the existing, partner ecosystem that typically offer managed services, MSP, and specialize in SAP hosting? If you want to go to cloud, you can go to, any of the hyperscaler. You can have a partner migrate and they do the managed services operations after that. So those partners have concerns. Hey, is this taking away my business? So we did a huge series of podcasts relating to what is SAP RISE and what does it do. So we broke it down into how they approach the whole service. But at the end of the day, there's a service list of things that they do and they don't, and then the customer signs on. Primarily, they handle the business of infrastructure, all of the cloud, the virtual infrastructure, the database, the operating systems, and then the customers, essentially just manage the application side of things, where like, security or inside of the application. So we did that, and it was useful to understand the structure of that. And then several years on, people are wondering, like, are more people going to rise? Because you would hear that in the success stories a lot, right? Oh yeah, such and such company went to rise. And then so recently, when this article came out, the Register, it kind of waken up some of my old memory cells and said, hey, let's revisit this thing, because originally there was too early to make a judgment call what was the quality of this service, right? Because any managed service provider is generally judged by their service, quality of service. And so I went back and did some research last week, and I found that in 2023, there was a big uptake when SAP first offered, because, the CFO loves it. Hey, simple, 2-line items, blah, blah, blah. So there was a big kickoff to say, hey, there was like 70% or something of customers were considering the migration to RISE. And then SAP said, if you don't do it by 2027, we won't be able to support your current existing SAP, because all new innovation will be on RISE and blah, blah. So there was a big kind of fallout from that, because people were like, hey, why are you forcing us, right? You're basically twisting our arm to go. So there was a big back and forth about the buzz and the lack of uptake on that. Well, last year in Q2 2024, apparently the number had dropped from 70% down to like in the low 40s%
Wow.
of customers who adopt SAP RISE.
Right.
Now, in context, if you're thinking about number of SAP customers globally, there are 300,000 customers, etc. 40% is pretty good. But if you think about a drop of 70 to 40%, you start
It's
asking
dramatic
this
drop.
question.
Yeah.
If you actually manage a service level of any type, a call that maybe you buy a car and you got the award that 70% satisfaction, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly you get a 40% satisfaction a few quarters later. You wonder why, right? Well, this article kind of shed some light on that. When I read into the article, it says that the majority of customers who actually migrated and have had experience on the platform for, I guess, a certain amount of time, maybe a year or more, found that the service levels were well below industry standard.
Mm-hmm.
What is industry standard? Well, it's negotiable, but it's generally accepted practice in the industry to provide 99.9%
Right.
SLA, right? Service
Yes.
level. That means uptime, availability is guaranteed. And we talked about this in our past episode. How do you enforce service levels, right? You have to monitor it, right? And then you have to report on it. You have to be accountable for the slippage, and there is typically some penalty if you miss it. Well, these users who said they were dissatisfied or not so happy is they finding out the service levels like 99.7% or lower. And that's what SAP is saying. This is what all we are accountable for, right? 99.7%. Now, if you take that and multiply by the number of systems you have and how critical they are in your business process, you got a 0.3%, which essentially you could be down for accountable cumulatively a lot of hours in a year, right?
Right.
That could disrupt your business. So I want to draw some analogy for this because it always helps to put in context, because 99.9 and 99.7 doesn't sound like a lot, but let's take something that happened in the news recently with Newark Airport, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so planes got like 99 seconds blackout in communication. So the FAA said, hey, planes just flying blind, there's no radio contact, there's radar, you kind of like in the air. How many flights are in the air? No communication for 90 seconds. That sounds like a long time. And even though pilots are trained to handle some of this stuff, it's not a situation you want the public to know about, and also to kind of feel confident about flying. So what happened is they cut back flights, right? So, the government says, hey, United Airlines, a major hub there, you cut back your flights so that, there's less congestion and, we can handle this. So the flying public has been put through many delays, some couple of days, some 12 hours, 13, 14 hours. So the disruption is tremendous. If you talk to any flying public today who goes through Newark Airport, it's like the 10th most busy airport in the US. So in relation to that, you have this disruption. Now, does 90 seconds sound like a lot? No, right?
Right.
But put in the right context, does hosting managed services of customers' production business process system 99.9 versus 99.7, multiply by 99.7 by the number of hours in a year or a month, and you're looking at a huge area where it's just fog. Like, I'm down, but apparently this is okay according to the service level. What does that do to my business process, right? So my point is this. In order for you to get 99.9% with SAP RISE, what Gartner's saying is you got to pay up. So now customers who said, hey, CFO, you have, sign up for this because it was like it was a good financial transaction with the combined licensing of SAP and the hosting services. You're going to save millions in simple math and blah, blah, blah. And now you're saying, well, I can't stand 99.7 because, that's too much disruption to my business. I got to pay up.
Right.
So now that I pay up, I don't know whatever the cost is. That cost now from your cloud migration and however number of years that you're going to reside on this service is a big amount.
Yeah.
Suddenly your CFO doesn't look so good very much.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering about the impact and why customers are citing this drop in service level compared to industry standards. But the bigger question is why? Why are they not offering 99.9%? So when you have low quality, what does it mean? It's like walking into a restaurant, right? You go to, I want quality, I want fast, I want cheap. Well, I can't have all three, right?
Right. Right.
So something's got to give. So I suspect the 99.7 is because another factor cited by RISE customer, and I've been working with RISE customers over the last probably 2.5 years globally, not just here in the US, Canada and US, in Europe, and now starting with APAC as well. The crux of this is that because if you're a large IT organization, you have been maintaining managing your infrastructure, you've trained people, you have tools, you have processes. Now you're turning it over to another organization, kind of like outsourcing, right?
Yeah.
We know what happened with the great outsourcing. It went for a while because it was cheap,
Yeah.
and then it all came back.
Right.
Most of it came back because they were not happy. It takes a lot for an organization outside to support your organization and do things the way you used to do them. So if the managed service organization is not equipped to handle things like requests, customization, automation, self-service catalog, solutioning based on customer need, not based on some, kind of like arbitrary, here's thing, take it or leave it type of thing. Then you have this situation where customers are saying, hey, for a simple request to do something like I need, to customize my connectivity between one system and another, it's taking twice as long or three times. Sometimes they've been citing weeks or months to fulfill this request because this organization doesn't have automation or doesn't have the streamlined process. So they engage every team involved. Oh, I need a security team involved. I need infrastructure team involved. I need a DBA system management. So like between 3 or 4 teams, they need a delivery manager to coordinate all that. And this came from a very simple ticket requesting something. By the time they chop it up and then divide it among themselves and who's doing what and orchestrate it, it basically takes weeks to fulfill something that really could have been an hour, 2 hours, maybe a day or maybe 2 days, right? So that's number one issue. There's lack of kind of automation around providing a basic request.
Still very manual.
Yeah. And secondly, that a lot of this now come down to because when you kind of operate on the basis that, hey, we offer you 99.7 and you get this. If you want more, it's kind of like charging and saying, hey, we need to sell premium. Okay. So when you want to sell premium, what are you doing? You're like, oh, that's not included. That's not included. And I've literally dissected in a long podcast what the service catalog looks like. You literally have like 100 pages of items. You have to go through every single item and see, am I responsible for this? And so most of the time, a lot of that goes through and they said, hey, we're not responsible for this. Customers, you're responsible for this. So imagine, right? You bought something and you want it to work the way it should work in your environment, not somebody else's environment. And then you're told that, hey, that's custom. You need to pay up for consulting or you got to pay up for extra time because, you need it done. And, typically this request would take us a week instead of, like a day. So if you want it faster, you got to pay up for premium stuff. So all of this is creating dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not defending any party here. I'm just talking because there's this article that Gartner, everybody knows Gartner. They do industry research and they found this with real customer base.
Yeah.
I myself represent companies as well as partners in many cases. And as also a third party solution provider, I find it a little bit disturbing that this trend is happening because if it happens on a smaller scale, you could be excused for, because we are still learning, still building, but it has happening on a global scale, at a large scale, which is disturbing because I don't want 100 Newark airport, right?
Yeah.
It's better not to have one.
Yeah.
You don't want this to be, imagine something like supply chain. If one company start having 99.7, having outage, have performance issues, having problem with service, meaning waiting to get provisioning of something, so they get delayed. So if they are a vendor, a provider in a supply chain, then somebody else is also waiting for it. You see the trickle effect?
Yes.
So what happened is then in the supply chain end to end, you might involve 3 vendors to deliver some end product. And you have these companies now having a common thread where their service is being delayed by the managed service that they adopted. So software should make things simple, should make things automated, efficient. It should make things more complicated that you are losing productivity.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and it just seems still kind of amazing to me that they're putting so much on to the responsibility of the client, right? In the small print, they're seeing that. And such a large company, such an important company as SAP is not using any automation.
I'm not saying they're not using in automation, but I'm saying that at the scale of they doing, it should be a lot more, and it should be the cost. So we talked about the differentiation in IT moving forward, and if we're
Yeah.
going to succeed and compete, not only compete to be the most efficient company to deliver service to the business, but you're competing for talent. You're competing, with other providers. If let's say I'm an IT admin and I'm looking for companies to work for, and I go interview 3 companies, right? I want to grow my career, and I go into one and they completely like no automation, right? And I go into another one, they got some kind of automation. And I go into another one, it's like 80% automated and it's like very slick. And well, which one would I pick? I would pick the one. Now, if I'm lazy, I would pick the one where, it's automated, because I don't want to do things manually. I don't want to like
Yeah.
have that stress of just delivering more based on how much hours in a day I could sit there at the keyboard and do things. So that being said, I think, there's the people that elevate to better jobs and doing more productive thing, and they can be an analytical, so picking up skills like AI and trying to use some of these tooling to help provide better solution. In those cases, if you are a company of that scale and magnitude, if I say I have 1,000 customers or 10,000 customers, and I have so much repetitive manual things, wouldn't that be the thing to automate first?
Yes.
And maybe you start with 100 things to automate, but 2 years in with the large scale business model that you have, you should already have 1,000 things that you've automated, right? So what I'm saying is, I think with the scale of this large enterprise and the service providers, they really should be taking a step back to look at how do we create solution that removes the dependency on the quality of people alone. If I'm growing, because if you're touting I'm growing cloud services by 60%, 50%, yet the team that delivers the service for each customer can't grow like that, right? You don't have enough talent. So if all the SAP customer around the globe say, I'm gonna uptech and do this RISE migration, there is no service today within SAP that can handle that volume, because they rely so much on manual, right, processes.
Right.
You should go almost autonomous, right? You should go autonomous where 80% of stuff is handled autonomously and it's transparent. And then it becomes, once you migrate them into that, it's become the operating model by default, rather than such a heavy-handed manual process. That's where I see industry. I think there's opportunities for partners, solution providers, because again, remember going back to what I said before with MSP partners being worried that, SAP is gonna, put them out of business. Well, maybe if you're mediocre and doing everything manual, maybe you should be out of business, right? Because you're not competitive anymore. But if you are elevated to the challenge to provide a service-oriented architecture, to use the platform as a service to deliver the end-to-end automation at every step of the way, right? We're talking about before monitoring, managing, automating, orchestrating. All of this should be an integral part of scaling, right? And if you can't scale and you're taking on more and more, your service will degrade, and you may not be able to handle that service level you committed to.
So let me ask you this. What advice do you have for companies that have been using SAP RISE, given these service levels, these 99.7 service levels?
I'm very I have talked to several clients about this. They have asked before they take the some of our clients have asked, hey, we considering RISE, what should we be thinking about? So as an advisor to a few of these customers, I really say that you can't take the step that your CFO wants, meaning I can't lay off my staff and say I'm going to save so much money by going this route, and I'm going to chop this off, chop that off, and I'm going to be great. Well, no, you need, actually, this is the time you need your trusted advisor. You need your best integration partner, the people who know and can walk you through the pitfalls, help you avoid them, and provide you a service that is complementary. I'm not going to say replacing, because you need complementary. So when you go into a scenario where you have somebody handling something and you say, okay, I'll sign up a contract to handle those, but you really need somebody in your court looking out for your interests, right? And it could be something like as easy as some changing requirements to do something. You need somebody that's been there, that has experienced what it needs to get done to take care of the problem. And then to pinpoint so that even as simple as what I say, when this RISE customer open a ticket request to the vendor, they don't know what to put in there because it's not a standard item in the catalog. I've gone and advised people like you should open this ticket ahead of time. Like if you need it next month, right? Don't wait 2 weeks before that.
Yeah.
Open it now. Be very crisp in your description. Pick the right service request. If you pick the wrong one, it goes to the wrong group. And then again, we got these 3 or 4 teams trying to figure out who's going to help this customer. And soon enough, you slipped like 2-3 weeks. So you need a really good, I would say, the solution provider, the service provider, or whatever partner that you have. You can't do away with those. You may lose people when you go to RISE because for many years, we've touted the industry needs to train, the IT industry needs to train a lot of cloud engineers. Okay, because we go to cloud, and so a lot of people invested in training certifications to get cloud certificates like, Amazon Web Service, GCP, or Microsoft Azure. Any of the top class skills was very much a desired learning path for careers, right? Well, what happened is I've seen customers where they invested so much over 5 years, train up the entire staff for cloud engineering. And then the CFO decides, I'm going to go to SAP RISE. You guys can't touch any more cloud resources. You don't do provisioning. You don't do cloud administration. You don't touch infrastructure. You don't log on to your operating system. You don't get on and install and patch data. So now look, all these people who train resource with skills, what are they going to do? They say, do I want to lose these skills or do I want to go to a company and apply my skill, continue to grow because it's a still good skill, right? Outside of this hosting business. So what happened is this company who choose to go this route will lose people for sure.
Yeah.
The people that have flexibility to move on, they have skills, have experience that are wanted in other industry. These companies cannot retain them because what happened is these people now will just sit in their job, but instead of doing it, they're describing it in a ticket. They're opening a ticket and they say, hey, you got to do this and here's 5 steps and spell it out. I mean, I might as well do it. If I have to spell all that out, right?
Exactly.
I'm paying somebody. So that's why I say if it goes towards automation, it's not bad. Okay, I have one guy that kind of know what he's doing and he's kind of the service manager. He opens tickets and he manages it. But then what happened to the rest of the technical people who value their skills, right? I used to be able to say, I'm very proud that I can build systems from the ground up. I can design the architecture, right? I can pick the platform, best of breed. I can build every little thing, virtual network, virtual machines, data, and then match it to what my application needs and do the whole thing. And now when I do the whole thing, I understand very intimately, end to end, when there's a problem, where the potential issue is, when I do root cause. But now you hand it all over. You're not doing any of that. So your skills now is basically lost if you stay in this company, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I think half of the people I know that were at customers who have taken on RISE have left. They've gone on to do other things, other companies who don't have this path. So I do see that the issue also is that these managed service providers, because they're using a lot of manual labor, they don't have enough people internally, so they outsource. So you get what they call sub-level processor.
Right.
A subcontract to some organizations in some country with lower cost labor, right? And you don't know who's doing it. You don't know who's handling your systems. And so that to me is, I don't trust it. Like, okay, first of all, the quality, if you can maintain quality, I don't care who's doing it.
Yeah.
But if the quality isn't good, then I do care.
Yeah.
So it's like this. If I show you a dashboard and I see some red stuff and you're slipping service level, then I do care. I want to double click in. I want to see what's wrong. What's the root cause? Why am I slipping? Why is my delivery slow? Why is my user not happy with the end user experience? Right. But if everything's green, great, then I don't care. Right. So this is what it's going to is like, if you do hold accountable those who provide you the service because you're paying great amount of money for it, then you should have the solution, the tooling, the dashboards, the ability to track real-time service levels, like what kind of service am I, mean time to service a ticket. If I open a ticket, I want to know who's working on it and what's the fastest response time, slowest response time. Am I getting what, if I order A, do I get A or do I get B, and I have to redo, right? These are very basic service concept, but I feel like it's not doing what it needs to be doing in a service industry that's been around for over 30 years in terms of managed services, outsourcing. It needs to be a better quality.
Yeah. So before we go on to the next topic, any last minute, any last words or major takeaways from this whole SAP RISE service failure?
I feel the last one I want to mention is probably also very frustrating for a RISE customer, is that once you sign on to this and you pay what you think you're getting, there is nothing cloud about it. Even though it's managed like, it's cloud ERP, there's nothing cloud about it. If you go back and look at the term and definition of what cloud is and what characteristic says cloud, right? You got agility, flexibility, and you got virtual. So you can define things software defined. That means everything is software defined. That means you can automate, you can shrink or grow as you need the demand. Your cost can be managed up or down that based on your peak usage and your low period. There's nothing cloud about the way SAP RISE is. You're giving it to them. If you want a bigger system, you got to pay for more, and it's not flexible. It's not on the switch, right? Dynamically sizing. Think about it, like during peak demands, and I want to dynamically bring on board through automation extra engines to service the workload.
Right.
I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
There's nothing cloud about it.
Right.
So that's my firsthand experience dealing with this, is that it's very rigid. It's back to the days where you literally had like IBM outsourcing, where you give it to them and you buy this pick of iron and that's what you got. You don't get more, you don't get less, and it's not agile. It's not cloud. So I don't think calling it cloud is even justified. It's just an extension of some data center resources that you pay for and you're stuck with until the terms of that runs out, or you're willing to pay to upsize and wait for whatever. Because cloud to us, most of our experience for the real experienced cloud engineer is almost instantaneous.
Right.
If I want to supersize this thing real fast to deal with a workload that I know is coming for like next 24 hours, maybe at month end, I should be able to inflate it. And then when I'm done, deflate it and I'm done, right?
Right.
But go back to what I said, some stuff takes days or weeks.
Yeah.
It's not cloud at all. It's no agility in that, right? No flexibility in that. And then once you consume that, you're still paying for the other one instead of turning it off. And so all of this thing is not designed what I would say is cloud agility at all.
Well, and I've also heard that it's the same thing with AWS and Azure, that, this whole, promise of, instant provisioning of, temporarily, provisioning new servers and then contracting, and you don't have to pay for the new servers when that's also kind of like a lie, I guess, if you will, right? With other cloud service providers as well.
So now if you manage it, you have much more flexibility. New solution offering from SAP itself is called Cloud ALM. It's Cloud Application Lifecycle Management, which is their next offering because they are ending support for a product that they roll out over 10, 15 years called Solution Manager, which is what they give to customers to manage their life cycle of the systems, right? Well, now the end of life is coming, 2027, and they say, hey, we got this new cloud thing. So we, as a partner, want, I say, complement stuff, right? We're never going to replace something that the vendor's pushing, because it's the vendor. They do their own thing. So we want to complement. We'll tell the customer what strength and weaknesses in this and maturity and blah, blah, blah. And what is, if you decide to do it, what is the transition roadmap, pitfalls of things, and plan for, costs and resources, timeline. Don't just listen and say it's cloud, it's great, right? Know what is good, what's coming, what's not ready. So don't jump in without some careful analysis, because there is definitely an impact that if you do this, you need to be fully aware of. And again, we've been doing this for years. It's not just recently. We've compared many industry solutions, what their strengths and weaknesses in several major areas. I'll go through history why we are kind of the authoritative advisor in this tooling solution process for application lifecycle management. So there'll always be going to be new tools and sexy names given stuff, but underlying, you need to understand what you need versus what's available and do the right research to help you do the POCs before you kind of jump in full in and go on board.
POC, right.
So that's really the topic of, and then we'll have, again, this word will become out there. They call it calm because cloud AM calm. There's nothing calm about it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't know if we have time to cover the next topic, but maybe we could just go over it quickly. I wanted to ask you about, in the IT Conductor logo, there's a little, like what looked like a gearbox, and there's an orchestra conductor in the middle of it. It looks like as though he's conducting, he's orchestrating.
Yes.
Something. So
yeah, so this is great if you want to finish your question or not, but
no, go ahead. I think you already know what I'm going to ask.
So there's a great genesis about IT Conductor, the name, why we picked it. It could have been a lot of different names, but because we understand down deep that IT is very, very uncoordinated. There's lots of talent, there's lots of people, lots of moving parts and tools. We know there's no shortage of tools. So imagine all of them as an instrument, like in an orchestra, let's say an 80-piece orchestra. You've got the string sections, and you got the percussions, and you've got the brass. So all of these very talented players could be your IT guy, your star. He's got his instrument, he's very good at it. But altogether, without some well orchestration, you're just going to have a lot of noise, right? So IT Conductor, we aim to kind of eliminate that noise and elevate the performance, right? Whether it's performance of a particular task and performance of a process or performance of your system, it's reducing the noise. So we say minimizing noise and maximizing performance. That's kind of our tagline there. But how do we do that? So with the concept of IT Conductor is you have a conductor orchestrating all these disparate tools, silos, players, tasks into a well-orchestrated end-to-end process. So if you have a process today on paper and you want to digitize it, we'll help digitize that. And even if it's a bad process, you digitize it, you'll find out it's bad really quickly, and then you can fix where it needs to be fixed. Right? But if you leave it on paper, you don't have ability to simulate how it works all together. IT Conductor is really about orchestrating using kind of monitoring and managing to help automate intelligently, right? So that's kind of the logo when you have the conductor in the middle and you got the kind of wheel around, and the wheel is, is a side of automation. But we also have the words in there about monitor, manage, automate, orchestrate.
Right.
Because without monitoring, you don't know where you're starting or stopping. Right? You have to know always how things are before you try to change it, improve it, right? And managing is the activity of doing something. When you manage something, it's a bunch of tasks.
Right.
So it could be a task, one task, two tasks. When you automate, you're automating a bunch of tasks together to get one thing done. Right? So it could be like provisioning a machine, right? That's a bunch of tasks. And then at the end of the day, you have a machine. Now you have a running machine, but you don't have an application. I need to install software. I need to get it online, and users can start logging in and using it. Now, then you can bring a bunch together of these automation into an orchestration.
Right.
So in analogy, where you have maybe the string section, they can play together. They have a lead violinist and they can play, parts of your Bach or whatever. You have that. That's kind of an automation. But then there's the brass section and there's the percussion section, all these other. So what happens then is you need the IT Conductor kind of brings them together as a conductor does in an orchestra, bringing back all these automation and putting it together as end-to-end as an orchestration. That's the difference between automation and orchestration. Automate, you could do one thing, or maybe a small number of things together. Orchestration could be a very kind of a long process solving a big problem as a solution, involving things that can happen different times across different platforms.
Right.
So IT-Conductor kind of logo represent this, where you are orchestrating and you many things. You're doing the monitoring, you're doing the management, you're doing the automation, and then you're also doing the orchestration all together on one platform. And you can use that as a centerpiece to control, right?
Right.
And have visibility, have dashboards, reports, end users that are onboarding, self-helping. All of these things come together end to end. So without having to have 3 or 4 or 5 tools, it's an integrated platform to help you orchestrate almost any IT task and set up automation, whether it lives on a cloud, whether on premise, or whether on one machine, multiple machine. It doesn't matter. We bring it together. We talk to all of them natively, agentlessly. So we don't have this huge kind of effort of deploying agents everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And also that's actually open to what we call security attack service as well. If you got 1,000 agents and you found a flaw, you got to go patch 1,000 agents, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas agentlessly, we talk through secure protocols and we handle things centrally.
Yeah.
So that's a long kind of description of what the logo is, but that's the really story behind the IT-Conductor logo with the
That's really interesting. And it's actually really
and we
cool.
have it animated too.
Yeah. Oh, you have it animated? Okay.
Yeah. Actually, if you go to our YouTube channel, as soon as you come in there, there's the orchestration. In fact, I think even on our main website, if you go to itconductor.com, there's right there, the first video about IT-Conductor, like a quick what we do. The first intro, I think like 20 seconds of it is the orchestration.
I want to show everybody what you're talking about. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
There we go. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And we actually have it set to 4 seasons.
If you go to itconductor.com, you can listen to that music and watch the video. You got to click on the little volume button to remove or to make sure that you can hear it.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I take it you're a classical music fan, Lynn?
I'm. You can see today I'm wearing Beatles. So
You're
I'm
wearing the
into all
Beatles.
kinds of music as well. In classical, I into all of that, and all the way through rock and even church music. I'm kind of a weekly church musician in a choir for many years.
Wow. What instrument do you play?
I play the guitar. I fancy myself from everything from classical all the way to even rock. Love the 80s music. Love the Beatles from the 60s, and big Pink Floyd fan.
Oh my goodness, I love Pink Floyd.
Yeah, my 1983 or something, I was fortunate enough to see them in concert in Australia, in Melbourne, actually. And that was like the first concert after the group broke up and they came back with the...
Lynn, I think you're older than you look. I think you might be older than what you look, because you look a lot younger than me. I think we might be about the same age, because 1983, I could be going to concerts too.
Yeah. So, I'm looking at some Pink Floyd concerts, into a lot of, I think my favorite stuff. People like Phil Collins, great drummer.
Yeah.
Music like even Sting, go back to the Police, and Sting's fabulous. Actually, some reason I like these guys who play music and sing at the same time. For guys like Paul McCartney on the bass, Sting on the bass, these are good examples of if you're not a music player, it's extremely hard for an instrument like bass to be singing and playing, because it's you're on completely different rhythm. You're singing and
yes,
and also extremely hard is drummers. So that's why, like Phil Collins, for instance, drummers, and you have of course the great Eagles, right?
Yeah.
Eagles.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few drummers that.
Yeah, and it's extremely hard because you are exerting yourself greatly, right? You're breathing hard, you're drumming, and you're singing. That's very difficult. When you're singing, you're using a lot of your body muscles to, control breath, breathing, and think about you drumming at the same time.
Yeah.
And sometimes the rhythm can be completely off. You're singing too. So
Yeah.
You see Phil Collins in the air tonight as an example of some music that I like. Oh, that's a classic. Everybody know that drum feel right in the middle of that song.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm a big music fan. And
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm a Rolling Stones fan, but I like the Beatles too. Yeah.
but then I can't get any satisfaction.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, listen, Lynn, this has been a great session. And I think next time we're going to get into some more topics related to this. And, I wanted to, I think next time we're going to talk about, the top mistakes that IT departments and MSPs make. So I think we'll have a good list.
Good.
And so we will see you all in the next episode of Linh Talks Tech.
Until next time. Peace.